Yeah, my name's Gordon Crick, so I work for HSE. I'm background as an inspector in health and safety. Just worth saying that we have the regulatory side, which I work. We also have our science division, and we're engaged in a fairly large project funded by Lloyd's Register at the moment. And in that project, we are doing some innovative work with them, hoping to do anyway with 3D repo, which is really interesting. But for me, I'm sticking to the regulatory side. I'm really going to take you back to basics. And I want to inspire you in the next 10 minutes that this is what BIM's all about. It is actually about preventing harm. This is a scene of disaster, really. This is a few years ago, a rural location. 2 people died. It's a conversion of an agricultural barn, a gable end wall that fell. And the real tragedy here is that the risks about that wall were known at the beginning of the project and simply not communicated through to the workers. Now, interestingly, HSE is not known for its modelling capacity, but in this case, we did create a model and an animation which was used in court. And I thought you might be interested to see it. I don't know if we can play this video.
Based on the information gathered and the debris pattern, the likely failure mode of the wall can be demonstrated. The section of wall to the south of the large opening slipped into the void above the previously cast base at the southeast corner and the newly excavated trench along the inside face of the wall. Once the wall section reached the bottom of the trench, the wall then rotated outwards, causing the lintel over the opening to miss the excavator. Kevin Ruffles was found near to the excavator. Matthew Skeet was close to the fence line.
We modelled the mode of collapse of the wall to show to the jury what happened, what the risk factors were, and exactly how this tragedy unfolded. And of course, in doing that, we were modelling in hindsight, with the value of hindsight. And my key message to you really is use models in foresight. And that's, I think, a really important message. And it will save lives. It's actually our conviction that in HSE that the digital tools that are associated with information modelling offer us the opportunity for a breakthrough in health and safety in accidents. And this is the reason for this, is because we do believe that in the design phase, better modelling, better collaboration will drive down risk and increase certainty so that designs are presented to contractors in a far better state to build. So I hope that's got across. Now, just looking, what is this foresight thing that we're talking about? Now, just to use an example, from the BIM model, the big picture, you can zero in on a particular issue. So you see it in the middle there, you've put a red line around it, that's an open stairwell. And what you're aiming to do is to prevent that accident report from happening. So this is what we're basically saying is using 3D models to improve the conversation about risk that happens and the ability and enhance the ability of people to foresee and manage risks. This puts a bit more, this is from an academic paper, that little line down the middle, but a kind of a rule that this guy put to it. So for a design element, when a work activity happens in a given location, when there are constraints such as holes in the floor, with that, which is associated with that, then a risk appears, and wherever there's a risk, there needs to be a mitigation. So actually, that's the kind of logic which we're working on, and we believe needs to be adopted by designers. And crucially, it's the first opportunity to spot the risk that's really important. So dealing with risk, not at the site end, but actually during the design phase. It was said I was going to talk a little bit about PAS 9. I'm only going to talk a very little bit about PAS 1192 Part 6. But two things from this diagram, which you may well be familiar with. The first is to emphasize this open learning environment, which HSE believes needs to happen for the construction industry. We need to have access to open health and safety data so that people can learn more dynamically and more rapidly about risks and how to control them. And so that's part of our vision going forward. The second thing is it's easy to look at that diagram and read it across as a narrative from sort of left to right and think phases, think a sequential thing that's happening. Actually, the way this PAS was written was the design phase should be collapsing all of those things. So the design should be benefiting from collaboration with end users, commissioners, contractors, constructors, in order to make sure that the information that is available in the design is as complete as it can be. I guess part of what we want to see is more design being done early, in fact more investment in design, and less uncertainty being passed on to contractors. So one of the techniques we really like is 4D modeling. There's a clause in our regulations which talks about clients and principal designers having to take account of stages and sequences of work. And the 4D modeling technique offers massive promise, and it's only, I think, we're scratching the surface of what we might be able to do in the future with 4D modeling in terms of linking health and safety risks to programs and so on. So I think this is really important. But this principle of, this is a cross-rail shaft of identifying, I don't know if you can see the little diggers, simply couldn't operate in the way that first designed. So that was part of a review meeting which identified a problem. Design work continued, risks were controlled through subsequent design. A second workable design was produced, which improved things, reduced the risk. But then crucially, the last thing, the communication happened. And so through workshops, you're passing information forward. So any use of modeling tools, I think to be effective in our world, in this world of CDM, it needs to involve collaboration between the different parties. So early contractor involvement in design and constructability reviews is really crucial. This is another story of a project which happened this year. In fact, we've been following this for 3 years. This is a three-way partnership between National Grid, the gas transmission people, Murphy's the contractor, and a design house called Premtech, and demonstrating the power of constructability reviews. So this is a screenshot from an outcome of some of their constructability reviews, so at a particular stage. And they do it in this style because they believe that by producing, some people call it Hollywood BIM, but basically what they're saying is by producing things in detail and accurately, they're actually able to feed forward information to the constructor. And one of the exciting things about this is not just the detail and the amount of work that's gone in to actually modeling that scenario, but is that information is then used. So that's a picture of a Fomex board. It's something like A1 size. So you can see, and there it is on the fence, if you like, on the site fence. So an example of information being fed forward in a very constructive and dynamic way, because it is the workers that are exposed and have the accidents. And all the technology, I guess, needs to feed that in to make sure that risk information in the end gets to the right people at the right time. That's me, really. That's what I wanted to say, so thank you very much.